Vincent Oligok, and this is chapter 3. It's called Vincent Oligok. Vincent Oligok sat with his legs out straight in a nest of golden caribou skins. He was in shirt sleeves playing pinochle with a short, husky man and a lean teenager. The whaling captain's back was harpoon straight. He held his head high like the leader of a wolf pack or the president of a people. The men who were playing cards with him were slightly bowed in unconscious respect. The whaling captain glanced at Lincoln, nodded, and went back to the game, playing each card with slow grace, as if he had never heard of time. Vincent Oligok was a man of moderate size. He wore a mustache and a neat, tufted beard on his chin. His thick black eyebrows arched to meet a cap of white hair cut squares across his forehead. He had the most peaceful face Lincoln had ever seen. While Lincoln waited, he noted that the tent was hushed except for the hiss of water simmering in a huge kettle on a kerosene heater. The steam and heat had warmed the air, and Lincoln untied his hood and let the ruff flop back. It circled his shoulders with a wreath of mahogany-colored fur, and he hoped he looked as elegant as Cusick did when he dropped his hood back. On the floor of the tent to the left sat a 2-burner Coleman camp stove on which a large pot of soup simmered and coffee percolated. A woman with skin the color of a doe's, with short, neat hair, squatted in front of the stove. She lifted a frying pan from a large wooden box that held food and kitchen utensils, and after putting it down, smiled at Lincoln. Her face was so friendly that he felt as if he had met her before, although he had not. She must be Bertha, Vincent's wife, he decided, because the wives of whaling captains, his father had told him, were the managers, planners, shoppers, hostesses, and gift givers. They were also skin boat stitchers, and a rare few were whale camp cooks. "How are you?" she said, concentrating on the heavy pan. "Real good, thank you. I had a great flight into whale camp with Cusick on the snow machine." Lincoln smiled broadly, and Bertha went on with her work. Behind the pleasant woman, the tent space was piled with furry hides and down bags. Lincoln thought there were at least 3 men wrapped up and sleeping there. In front of the sleeping area was a CB radio, on top of which sat a digital clock. It read 11 p.m., yet the sun was still above the horizon and illuminating the tent well enough to read by. Beginning on May 10th, precisely, and it was now approaching the 2nd of May, the sun would not set again for 2.5 months, pouring light on the Arctic all day and all night. Sunshine attends the whale hunters. The pinochle game ended, and Vincent coughed and bent over as if in pain. Laboriously, he straightened up and beckoned to Lincoln. "Sit down, Lincoln," Noah Stonewright. Lincoln was startled by Vincent van Gogh's voice. It sounded more like low-toned bells pealing in the distance than a man speaking. "Sit down, Lincoln Noah Stonewright." It was a very comforting voice, and Lincoln relaxed and took off his parka, although no one had invited him to. Bertha stuffed it, along with everyone else's, beside the cold tent walls for added insulation. Crossing his legs, Lincoln sat down on a skin, his eyes leveled with the elders. Again, he was surprised. He had expected to see the keen eyes of a man who was a hunter, a whaling captain, a politician. Eyes that were... Sorry, I've got a bad shadow coming in here now. Eyes that were sharpened by cunning bouts with raw nature as well as with raw men. What he saw there were steady eyes of a serene human being. "I'm glad you're here," Vincent Oligok said. "Well, I'm really glad to see you," Lincoln replied sincerely. "My dad admires you so much." That did not seem to flatter the man, so he went on. "He told me how you killed a polar bear with a knife." This whaling captain's face did not change. "Everyday stuff," it said. Lincoln tried again. "He also told me how you rescued him from a chunk of ice that had broken and was off floating away." At last Vincent Oligok reacted. He stroked his beard and grinned. "Your father I named the crazy one. He was a little reckless, all right." He smiled and shook his head. "But he was a good boy. He learned fast." Lincoln had never thought of his father ever being a boy, much less being crazy and reckless. He grinned and felt better about his crooked nose. He had broken it when he had fallen from a lamppost he had foolishly climbed to show off for the love of his 3rd-grade life. "I've wanted to meet you for a long time," Lincoln said. "I've heard so much about you from Dad, but I also have another reason." Lincoln flashed the engaging Stonewright smile that had gotten the men of the family both in and out of trouble many times. "My Uncle Jack James, came to Barrow 2 years ago. After a short time, he stopped writing. We have not heard from him since." Vincent Oligok's expression did not change. "Did you know what happened to him?" Sagnik, the older pinochle player, curtly introduced himself and his son, Tigluk, and then left the tent. Tigluk put on his parka with loud remarks in Inuit and movements so exaggerated that Lincoln was forced to duck his head. When the father and noisy son had departed, Lincoln went on. "The day before Uncle Jack left home, he told me he was going to meet you. If you don't know where he is, could you tell me how to go about finding him?" Tigluk came back and picked up his rifle. As he brushed past Lincoln, he jabbed him in the kidneys with the toe of his boot. The pain was so fierce Lincoln bit his lips to keep from yelling. Vincent, who had bent over to cough, did not see the lightning-fast kick. But Bertha sensed that something was wrong. She peeked through the tent flap at the retreating Tiglook and then looked quizzically at Lincoln. He smiled. "I'll bet you're hungry, all right," she said. "Would you like hot soup?" He was so happy that Vincent and Bertha Oligok had been speaking to him in English that he quickly forgot Tiglook. "Soup sounds real good, Miss Oligok. Thank you." Bertha ladled out a bowl of soup from the black pot and passed it to Lincoln, together with a big round pilot cracker. After a brief wait for a spoon, he concluded there would be none. He brought the bowl to his mouth and sipped the brew. The beak of a duck floated to the surface, and he stopped drinking. "Perhaps you prefer peanut butter," Vincent Oligok said, interrupting the pause. No, this is good." Lincoln took a big swallow. The beak rolled to the bottom, and several feathers surfaced. His stomach churned. He wondered what to do. He could not throw up. That would be an insult to the host and the hostess. He could not pitch the soup out. Food must be scarce out here. He recalled a family story about Uncle Jack. At an important dinner party, he had found a fly in his soup. Rather than embarrass his hostess, he closed his eyes and swallowed it. Lincoln closed his eyes and swallowed. Unseen, the brew was quite tasty. He was very, very hungry, which helped. When he opened his eyes, Vincent Oligok was looking at him with great fondness. But he did not tell him where Uncle Jack was, or even if he knew about how to go about finding him. Lincoln was beginning to understand he would have to bide his time with these people of nature. They paced themselves slowly. When he was done, he wiped his cup with a paper towel Bertha had given him and put it back in the box against the cold tent wall. What moisture was left in it was ice in seconds. Food preservation was no problem here. Everything near the tent walls was frozen, even the pilot biscuit. It had snapped like an icicle when he had bitten into it. The furs in the sleeping area rustled, and a robust man yawned and got to his feet, completely dressed. Apparently he had slept with his clothes on. Bertha gave him a cup of coffee and a bowl of duck soup. He nodded to Lincoln, as if he already knew all about him, and then put on his parka and sunglasses. He picked up his gun and walked into the whiteness. That is Utik, Vincent said. "He's president of the bank. He's going on watch. We take turns sleeping and eating and watching for whales." He handed Lincoln a pair of binoculars. "You go with him. You will learn from him. We need your eyes. I do not stand watch anymore." He coughed, and his body crumpled over. With great concern, Bertha put his arm around him and offered him a steaming bowl of duck soup. He smiled lovingly at her and shook his head. "I cannot eat." Bertha's lower lip trembled. "You must," she said coaxingly, and then her face brightened. Lincoln Noah, got that luscious beak, but I saved the best for you, the eyes." Lincoln put on his parka, snow shirt, and 2 gloves and 2 mittens, which took him a good 10 minutes, picked up his gun, and stepped out into the frigid twilight. He caught up with Utik near the Umiak perch. Respecting the rule of silence, he gestured, "Will you show me what to do?" But did not think he had gotten the message across. "We can talk out loud," Utik replied. "The whales have stopped coming." He sniffed the frosty air as if to smell their whereabouts. "They come in 3 waves or runs. Thousands swim by for days and days, and then none at all for days and days. Now we have none. The first run is over." He picked up a handful of snow and tossed it up into the air. "Eskimo weather vane," he said. "The wind is from the northeast. That is good. The northeast wind blows the pack ice away and opens the leads. Up the leads comes Agvik. He follows the ice. He is an Eskimo, all right, like the polar bear and seal, like the walrus and the eider duck. We all stay close to the edge of the ice." "What does the bowhead whale eat, sir?" "Brit and krill, which are tiny, tiny lobsters and shrimp and crabs and snails and fragments of sea urchins, the plankton mass." "The same as the humpback whale," Lincoln remarked. Utik did not take his eyes off the darkening water. "A big whale needs 2 tons of brit and krill a day." 2 tons of food a day?" Lincoln exclaimed. Even the scientists at Woods Hole had not told him this. "Wow, how can they eat that much?" "With big mouths, I've seen bowheads with 20-foot-long mouths. Inside are tiers and tiers of baleen. Some people call them filters. Agvaku opens his mouth. The seawater runs in. He closes his mouth and shoots the water out through the filters with his tongue. The brit and krill are caught. He swallows." "Baleen is what my great-grandfather made his fortune on." "Yes, he and others." Utik shook his head. "They took a lot. One season the sea was red with the blood of thousands of bowheads, just for the baleen. The whalers did not render the oil, eat the meat, or use the bones. They just slaughtered, took the baleen, and left the rest to rot." He rubbed his chin. "Sacrilege." Lincoln pulled uneasily on his mittens and wondered why he, the great-grandson of a Yankee whaler, had been brought to whale camp. "Then the Yankee whalers left the Arctic," Utik said. "Because there were no more whales?" Essentially, after the great slaughter, it was not worth their time to hunt. Also, petroleum products and spring steel replaced whale oil and baleen. They killed a lot. 18,000 in 50 years. Utik adjusted his parka hood. But there were some left. They came every spring, increasing little by little. The Eskimo took about 10 or 20 a year, but most often none. There were only a few crews then. Most Eskimos had forgotten how to whale. The whales came and went, and they increased. Then in the 1970s, the Tanix decided that the bowhead was going extinct. They called an international meeting. They ordered us to stop killing whales. The Tanix came to the Arctic to tell us to eat chicken and hamburgers. We did not like those white knights. Lincoln felt a chill go to his spine. Uncle Jack was one of them. We got mad, all right. We of all people do not want to push the whale off the earth. The whale and the Eskimo are one. And we got mad because we were told not to hunt whales by the very people who had slaughtered them. And we got mad because the Tanix do not think we know anything about whales. We know there are not as many as there were, but we also know that there are enough to keep us whaling. We don't take many. We don't need many. We take only what we need. When the order to stop whaling went out, we got our own committee of Eskimos together and talked to the international crowd. They listened to our needs and decided on a compromise, the quota system we have now. This year, Barrow can take 4 whales, Wainwright 2, and the other 7 whaling towns 2 to 3, according to the number of people living there. The quotas should be higher, Utik declared. There are many more whales than the white men say. Many more whales than the white men say there are. But we are good Americans. We are law-abiding. When we get our quota, we stop whaling. Lincoln wondered why he was tolerated in whale camp at all. His Eskimo blood that made him acceptable was very thin. Yet, curiously, he sensed he was wanted. Utik stopped walking, took 2 sticks from his parka pocket, and bent over a 4-inch wide and very long crack in the ice. He placed 1 stick on one side of the crack and the second on the other side so the points touched. He walked along the crack for about 40 paces and placed 2 more in the same way. Gesturing to Lincoln to follow, he stepped out on powder blue ice and walked to the Umiak perch. This is new ice, he said, forms along the edges of the leads when the water is still, only a few inches thick. As he walked, he put his whole foot down, not the heel, then the toes, as comes naturally. Lincoln wondered why, until walking naturally, he saw the spongy new ice sag and splinter star-like under his boot. He put the whole foot down and followed Utik in the stride the Eskimo learned from the polar bear who walks the ice. And that's the first part of chapter 3, and I'm going to stop there and I'll do a new video for the second part.